Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point. I'm your host, Blaine, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. We'll help you forecast your cash flow model scenarios and understand the future of your business. And I'm really excited to have joining me today, Ilya Kroogman, founder of Digital Panda. I've known Ilya for a while now. We actually met, I think, about a year and a half ago at South by Southwest, and have managed to keep up over that time. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I always love to start off by finding out, where was just the very first time you kind of got that little tickle that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I think it was already in high school. One of my first jobs, I was working changing tires or something. And I worked for a family friend, uncle. He ran the business, and I saw what it was to be, I guess, free and able to use your time how you wanted to run your business, and as opposed to being in the back shop having to change tires all day long. So
it's I had a few formative, pretty rough jobs when I was younger, and even that in itself is a lot of motivation. But it's when you see that other side and recognize it and say, wow, there's something out there that sounds really cool. So I know sort of what you do now with Digital Panda. So what was your, I guess, your first entrepreneurial endeavor? Like, how did you take your first steps once you kind of thought, hey, this might be an interesting way to go?
Yeah. So even before the Digital Panda, in Vancouver, we have something called the Richmond Night Market. And my friends and I decided to open our own stand at the Richmond Night Market. I would say that was one of the first, I guess, businesses where we spent the entire summer hawking ice cream to visitors to the night market. So there's three of us. We were partners. We didn't have any staff that year. The three of us ran it full time, and it was definitely a huge learning experience.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. The first one is always a few burns, of course, for sure. So how did you come up with the idea for ice cream? Just seeing the opportunity, or?
So at the time, cake pops were really popular. So we were looking for, what could we possibly sell at the night market? We had this opportunity to get a stand. The three of us kind of partnered, and I said, well, why don't we sell ice cream cake pops? And we started that, and we kind of started doing research and development over the course of a month. And this was like right before the night market even started. Came up with the branding, the name, created the signage, all the systems, and then started selling it.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. It
was a lot of fun. It was a delicious summer, but it was also super busy because I had a full-time job at the exact same time. So on the side, I was working, 40 hours a week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes a long weekend, Monday, I would be in there working.
Yeah, it's those. I think all of us have gone through those days of burning the candle at both ends, and usually in the middle all at the same time. Like it kind of goes with the territory, and it's and then even as I've had other founders on the show over the years, you start to find out that's probably not the healthiest thing, and start to try and bring.
It's a lot easier when you're 20 something and you have partners and everybody's young, no kids, right? So.
Yeah, it's amazing how the years start to go. I can't do that anymore. It's a little much. That's it. And so you're working full time, started this business. Did you sort of carry that on, or was it just sort of like a shorter term experience?
It was just the one summer, and then the next summer after that, I ran it again. My partners decided they didn't want any more of the night market, and I ran it with another very close friend of mine, but a slightly different concept, and it was fresh juice. And fresh juice sold way better than ice cream at the Richmond Night Market. We got a little bit of tip from the owner, and he said, ice cream is not what people really come here for. They come for some savory foods and wash it down with something. So we sold, watermelon juice, lychee juice, a bunch of other things. It was really quite successful that year.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's it's sort of like the first step into really understanding the market and having some intel.
That's right. And pivoting. And that was the first year that we actually hired staff. And so I would say that was the first time I was truly given an experience of like running a team, and that I had to fully pay for, as opposed to my day job where I ran a team that, was kind of a product owner as opposed to business owner.
And how did I guess the first experience of running a team and having staff is always it's just it's new, right? It's new. How did that go for you? Did you feel like lots of learnings there, but how did it go in the first
Yeah,
run
it went
through?
pretty well. I mean, for me, it was always about understanding how people work. Everybody has a different work ethic. Everybody has a different mentality of, and at what time do they come to work? And it was finding and identifying like who was the strongest within the team, promoting them to kind of be, managerial maybe, and having them help
Mhm.
and support their coworkers.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned sort of was your day job, was it related to, I guess, what eventually you kind of went into in entrepreneurship, or
Yeah,
was it something?
totally. So my day job was, I guess, project manager or manager of software development for a company called Pressreader. I had started at that company when I was around 26, and by 30 something, I was all the way up to project manager of the branded edition. So Pressreader, for those who don't know, is a amalgamator of newspapers, magazines, and books, and they put them together in an app with every single platform covered under the sun, all the way down to TVs, I think. And they're mostly found nowadays in lounges. So if you ever travel and you're going into a lounge or a hotel, they no longer give you a newspaper printed anymore. They give you a code and they say, or open the Pressreader app, and it's covered under a hotspot.
Oh, interesting. I'd never heard of that. I've probably seen it
Yeah,
in enough hotels.
most likely
I
you've
probably never.
seen it, but they now work with
Yeah.
branded editions, so working directly with the New York Times, and distributing their digital edition on the iPad, iOS, whatever.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. Um, so where I guess there must have been some obviously interesting experiences there. You were there a number of years. You kind of started to move up the ladder. So I guess what changed that you didn't want to sort of keep climbing the corporate
Yeah,
ladder?
totally. It was a combination of things. I always liked design, and I was always super focused about creating design based business and having my own design house. Uh, on the side of all of that, the night market, the day job, I also was working and creating as a freelancer websites for people, small businesses,
Mm.
friends, and whatever network that I had in Vancouver. Um, that kind of started to turn into a UX UI job directly at Pressreader as well. So now I was this hybrid of project manager as well as software development manager and doing some UX UI internally. I got hired through LinkedIn by another company. It was a company in Canada called Mogo. Um, People may know it for the credit score, as well as now they've pivoted into crypto wallet and a bunch of other products. And I was hired
Mhm.
as their lead UX UI for mobile, and I worked there for about 2 years. So
Okay.
during that time, I could no longer do my freelance anymore. So I actually started hiring on the side. So I hired who is now our creative director, Tibor. He started working with me after hours. He would, I would talk to clients. He would design the work. I would develop it. And we did that for several years until all of a sudden we had a large client base, and I was running between, you know, my lunch break, meeting clients and trying to close deals. It just
Yeah.
got so overwhelming that I decided to, maybe now it's time to jump ship and do the design thing full time.
Yeah, it's. I think all of us did a lot of the, like at least wearing multiple hats. I know when I had my sort of my first job, left my first job, and that was in I think '99, or at least that's when I started my first little business, and then left in '99, 2000, something like that. And it was just sort of juggling to go like, okay, well, I'm starting a business, but I also have to keep like money coming in. Got to, got to pay the bills. You got to pay, And so I had little contracts here and projects here, like this, that, and the other, just to sort of uh, uh, make it a smooth transition as possible until, kind of had the critical mass of clients. And it's like, yeah, it's just like, now I have too many things going on and
It was the first year
focus.
of being fully in business for myself was interesting because I think within 6 months we found out that we're having our first baby. And, all of a sudden the pressure just went 5x. But also at that exact same time, we got one of our biggest clients, an e-commerce project, that started supporting us full time or retained us full time. We started working with them, improving their sales and doing a lot of like UX UI marketing strategy for them. And they did really well. And so did we. So, that helped us kind of get into our first trajectory.
Yeah. How did you, like, cause I know when I was suddenly out on my own, business development became a totally different
Mm-hmm.
thing, because before it was like, hey, if you network a bit, I get a contract here or there, but I already had a job, or I was, or, and then all of a sudden I'm like, now I'm on my own. I need work, and it needs to be regular work. And there's got to be another one next week and the week after and the week after. And how did you approach that? Like, how were you getting those jobs early on as you started to get that, I guess that beachhead that would get you a little more
Yeah, I'd
settled?
love to say it was easy, but it, it definitely wasn't. Um, a lot of it had to do with showing as much of our work as fast as possible. So, I would say we do really good work, and I'm very proud of the work that we do. And so, whenever I show that to somebody, either sitting next to me at a plane, or flying, in a lounge or at a party or whatever, anytime I show the work that we're doing, people are pretty impressed, and they say, "Oh, I have a friend who's starting a business. Maybe I can connect you." Those kind of networking situations turned into quite a few projects. I developed a great friendship and some business from someone, as I've mentioned, on a plane. That turned into lots of different projects and opportunities and all these kind of things. So
Mm-hmm.
most important, is keeping your opportunities open, and when it comes to you, you take advantage of it. But I tried
Yeah.
to hire a business development person. Didn't really work out. Agency life,
Mm.
hard to do outbound sales. It's nobody really wants to hear from you, and they've got enough emails coming from SEO professionals and people who are setting calendar appointments for you. So you're just another person in their email inbox. So for me, it was really, really important to make sure that we are able to show our work and show it off on multiple different places, multiple different touch points. And wherever people saw the Digital Panda, it's always going to be a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the start of our quality business development was always our own website, and being able to push the boundaries of what web design was and web technology was to show off like how good we are. Um, that really propelled us every time.
Yeah. It's so different today than back when I had an agency. We all of our work basically came through networking and referral, and a little bit of cold call and everything else. But almost all repeat customers, networking referral. And our website at that time, this is going back, early 2000s into the mid 2000s, and uh, it was mostly to, like, it sounds weird, but it was mostly about
Mm-hmm.
credibility. Like, we would meet somebody or we would get a referral or whatever, and we knew they were popping by the website just to go, oh, these guys are legit, and then we talk, kind of thing, right? um, at that time, if we got a phone call and it was someone from the web, it was virtually always just like, okay, who is this? And it was, I don't know if we ever got a substantial job through the website. It was just, usually it was kind of not a great lead,
Totally
right?
different world
And
nowadays for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and it feels like it's flipped, like upside
Yeah.
down. And now that's the driver. People go there first. They vet you first. They reach out for, well, with Dryrun, like, of course it's totally different, where We have inbound leads. We've got a whole strategy. It's bringing people, like, it's just such a different world than, and I don't know when it flipped.
I don't know
when
either,
it
but
flipped.
in the past couple of years, as our work obviously got better and as people recognize this, the RFPs and the random people that would email us are now from multi-billion-dollar companies saying
Mhm.
things like, we really want to work together. We found you, God knows how, but they found us.
Yeah, that is, man, I wish I had that when I had an agency. Yeah, it's flipped around so much, but it's, I think probably really gratifying. Well, like I said, for us with Dryrun, we people coming from all over the world every day. It is just, it's really cool that way. It's such a different model. But I still see the value even in our business of relationships and networking
Always,
and
for
talking
sure.
with
Yeah.
people, and it's just,
Yeah, it's all
it's
about,
really stuff.
whenever anybody wants to work with you, it's because they like you first, and then they like the work that you do, right? You could make the best work in the world, but if you're an asshole, nobody wants to work with you. So
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the entryway is to get you to that first step when you start developing relationships, and then I found, and I'm sure this hasn't changed, when you have really good clients and great relationships with them, it inevitably leads to other great clients and great relationships, because they seem to know each other, right?
yeah,
Like they seem to
seems
know
to be a network of
other
people who
people
do
at
good
work.
work,
So
and there seems to be a network of people who do bad work. So
yeah,
just stay away from one of them.
exactly. Exactly. We had those conversations so many times. Bad client always leads to bad work, and it's like, yeah, and you have to almost like cut off that branch of the tree and help the ones that are growing and really
Yeah.
flourish. And it's I don't sort of want to go down necessarily down this path, but it's been a challenge for every business, like especially creative businesses like that. When you have clients that are just not a good fit, it's really hard on the business. It's really hard on the team and the business, and probably you and the profitability oftentimes. But it's probably not a good fit for them either,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, anytime you want the business, sometimes you get jaded and blind, and you just want the business so bad that you don't see either the red flags or, the writing on the wall, or whatever other saying goes. But um, very often in those situations, you'll bend over backwards for people who don't care about the design. They don't care about the quality of the work. They just want it done. And nowadays, we're much better at identifying those people. We're much better at saying no right away and saying things
Mm.
like, here are 3 or 4 other agencies that you could possibly work with as opposed to us. Just, being good in that way. So,
Yeah. And it's a huge benefit to the business to do that. And it also partly is just being able to stay in your lane. I know we used to veer sometimes outside of our lanes because we think a project looked really cool, and it would be usually a learning experience that was pretty tough, because it's like, man, you're inventing stuff and you're learning it the first time, and then we're off to something else. And the ones that always worked the best is when it was like, yeah, we've done this before
ah,
and we know exactly how to
I
do
mean,
it,
we've
right?
tried to bite off more than we could chew, even like a year or two ago, where we're working with a very large company and they did a full global rebrand. And, we tried to pitch them on, several 7 figures of marketing support. And, they just didn't work out. Maybe they thought that we were not mature enough, or for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It happens, and oftentimes you probably look and can trust that it's probably better for you and your business too, right? Like,
Totally. Yeah.
so and so you started out like, and just you and was he like your creative director, I believe you said, or like
Tibor, yeah.
yeah, small team. And I imagine as you started to grow, like you've started to add team members and started to expand the business. Um, how, like, when did you start to feel like, oh man, we gotta start hiring. We gotta start, when did that sort of hit?
There's been a few moments over the years. All of a sudden, you realize that everyone is working full time. You don't have the time to answer emails from like new potential projects. You dropping the ball on existing projects just feels like you're underwater. 99% of the time. So at that point, we were like, okay, we need to hire our first project manager, creative producer. We did that, 3 or 4 years ago. That made it easier for myself and the creative director. We no longer had to communicate as much with the clients and could focus on the work.
Mm-hmm.
We hired another project manager, account director later on, and then people just started. Sometimes people would come in randomly and send us an email and say, we really want to work for you. Generally, that hasn't been our approach. Our approach has always been to seek out new talent when we really need it.
Mm-hmm.
But from time to time, we have hired very talented people, and we're very grateful for them still being on board.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I hired a guy, and he was terrific. And he came in to the studio and he just said, I want to learn from you guys and I'll work for free. And I went, well, tell me what you do and, learn about him. And I said, well, we're going to give you a try, but you're not working for free. But it was, and we hired him. And
that's great.
But it was such a different, it wasn't the fact that he was willing to work for free. It was just that it was the way he presented himself, the way he came in, and he was just like, he was driven, like, and he just wanted to learn. And that was really valuable. And he worked for us for quite a number of years before he, saw a great opportunity with a much bigger outfit, and it was, congrats to him, so to be able to move up but it's always a challenge, is expanding and hiring and staff. It's always a challenge. And I'll tell you that when I had my agency, like I had it for, it's over a decade. And I'll tell you, I think I got a little spoiled because we always seemed to have a really good team and they always got along really well and it worked really well. And it always felt like, it's easy. Right. And then in Dryrun, we started out pretty good too. And then as we went through the pandemic, we had some little bumps in the road there. And for a number of reasons, us not really understanding what we needed necessarily, who we needed or which market we were going after. And sometimes, it wasn't maybe reciprocated on the other side, to be honest, either. Learned some hard lessons from that still resonate. And so I feel a lot different now with the idea of expanding and adding to the team, being much more thoughtful and sort of cautious. We said we would do the hire slow, fire fast sort of mentality, or hire for culture. And then we kind of in a rush veered away from that a few times, and it maybe wasn't the best thing. And I learned some hard lessons. And how do you view that? That's such a challenge for businesses to make sure they're getting the right people.
I'm very selective of who we hire. We haven't done, it's been a tough year for most agencies, I think, over the past year or two. So we haven't done a lot of hiring, if any. But I'm super selective of who we hire. We test them rigorously, both from what is the quality of their work? How do they work together? We're completely distributed, so it's really important that people are independent, are able to be working by themselves, self-starters, all of those things that you see, and enjoy working kind of on their own, as opposed to they feed from the energy of others in an office setting.
Yeah.
So all of those things are super important for us. And when we work with them for a couple of months, we know that they're going to be a good fit. Even within a few weeks, we know they're going to be a good fit or not. But we try to give people the benefit of the doubt if we maybe not see it right away, and we let them go really quickly. If we've had certain situations where we hired a designer or a developer, and within a week we let them go.
Yeah, it's and that's the right thing to do for everybody, because it just is.
Yeah, you don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah, exactly. Have you always been like distributed or fully remote, or did you
always
have an office at a time?
Yeah, we've always been that way. When I was working at Press Reader, I managed a team in Kiev as well as Philippines, and that was my first taste of distributed work and just remote teams in general. I found it actually pleasant to be able to talk to a client or talk to the internal stakeholders, set a task, have it done for the next morning, come back and see it already there. And we kind of run with it. It works into our advantage, and sometimes it works to our disadvantage as well. Like if you have to have something that same day, and maybe that team member that was working on it is in Europe, or our creative director is in Europe, and some of our design and development team is here. So most of the meetings are going to only happen in the morning. Those kind of situations are to our disadvantage.
Yeah, it's with my last business with my agency, we had office, and then it ended up too big of an office, and like all these things. And with Dryrun, purposely from the start, it was all distributed, and we've stayed 100% that way, and it was interesting to see that we were. I think people kind of at times thought we were pretty weird pre-COVID. Like you don't have an office.
Yeah.
Your people are scattered all over, North America. Yeah, it was kind of weird. And then just like overnight, suddenly it was like we're in our wheelhouse. It was normal. And now customers are all used to Zoom or used to Teams or whatever. Easy to get them online. They get more and more comfortable with it. And it was actually like, that sort of side of it's been a bit of a benefit for us, I think, of just the rest of the world now is kind of like comfortable with what we were doing and how we were working with people. And I don't know if you sort of felt the same, or because you're
more than that. Yeah. I mean, we were losing projects because people were saying, why don't you have an office? We'd like to come see you. You're an external team. Like we lost a project from a Toronto company in 2019 because they said they wanted to hire local. Or they had outsourced team or something like that they had a bad experience with. I was like, we're in Vancouver, like I don't know what you're talking about. And as a result, overnight our business started to grow really fast because, like you said, everybody was on Zoom. Everybody's now getting used to it, and they were also running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to figure out how do they work remotely, what's the best way. We had also been doing it for years. It's just, business as usual. Yeah.
It was odd to have it almost barely a hiccup. It's like, I hear people aren't going to work out there.
I was like, you just start hearing clanging outside your windows. Yeah. That's the only difference, right?
Yeah. It was a really interesting time. And now coming out I guess we're out the other side, but are you starting to see sort of signs of it going a little bit more of hybrid back on the client side? I know not on your side, but like dealing with clients and that, is any of that sort of creeping back in, or is it just like, this is just how we work now?
There's a few companies. We just came back from LA, Irvine, kicking off a project. That office is pretty empty. It's an entire floor of an office. We met with our creative agency that we're partnering with in New York. Also an entire floor of people, pretty empty. People like to come in, people don't like to come in. I think I visited Google and they were, 2 days on, 3 days off kind of deal. And people only come in on Mondays and Fridays and maybe one other day, but as much as possible, Wednesday and Thursday, as much as possible, they'll try not to come in.
Yeah. It feels like that whole, like for us, it was, like you said, is like next day, same as always, and still same as always. It feels like there's still going to be this slow settling in and transition. And I think it'll be over the next few years as people try and figure out, this little bit of a hybrid. And there's probably some people or some tasks or some things where they want to get together, at least infrequently. Or sometimes some people want to be in an office every day. But I don't think it's ever going to go even close to back to where it was.
Yeah, probably not. And I think there's quite a lot of positions out there that don't need to be in an office. But there are a lot of advantages to being able to creatively, kick around some ideas in a small room. And what Facebook or Meta, as well as a bunch of other companies are doing with the headset Apple Vision Pro, Meta Quest 3, they're now trying to create a more realistic and lifelike, FaceTime experience, whatever they call it,
Mm-hmm.
where you actually see the person's face, you see their interactions, and maybe you even see the hands. When that starts to feel more natural and everybody can wear a not so expensive headset remotely,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that in-person work is going to be 100% necessary, because it's either you're at your desk or you're in a meeting room, right? Or you're at the
Yeah.
water cooler. That's a totally different conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like I'm more connected with my team. I think when I had an office and they were just, like over there down the hall through a door, you know, and we had instant messaging. So there's stuff coming in on instant messaging. Even back then, I don't even remember what it was called. It was super early instant messaging. Um, and I felt like, man, I don't know if I'm that connected outside of sort of, you maybe go out and chat with them or around lunchtime or something like that,
Well, you're
or a
also the
little.
business owner, so um, business owner stays a little bit aloof from the team.
You're never, yeah, you're always going to have that sort of a separation anyways. And that's why, like, we had the team that worked together had their space and they could work together and circle me in when they want another opinion, but I didn't want to be ever hovering and peeking over shoulders. It's like, hey, come take a look at this. Yeah. Okay. Or let's whiteboard this out. I will say the one thing that I kind of miss, and we're distributed. We're not even in this, like my co-founder's out your way. He's on the coast there. And the one thing I would like to have, because I still like I still always have like a pad of paper and a pen right beside me. And I miss the whiteboard. I miss, the chairs, the whiteboard, and, the cup of coffee, or sometimes Friday afternoon, the beer, and you're sitting there and you're writing on the whiteboard and you're talking and people are going up, and I kind of miss that atmosphere a little bit. Just because we did so many interesting sort of creative things on the old whiteboard, but I don't know if it's necessary. I kind of miss it. It's a bit nostalgic, right? So,
Well, the digital whiteboard, Miro and FigJam and all of these other companies are making great progress there. It's not the same, obviously.
yeah.
I never really liked my writing, so I don't miss that too much.
Yeah, like, well, what we do today for digital is actually better because we'll mock stuff up. I've literally at times I'll like have screen sharing Photoshop and just doing stuff like just rough, but
Yeah.
the visuals are better. I think that's the part that I miss, being in the same room at times, is the sort of creative process in a room like that. And
Yeah.
but that was also a creative agency, so it's a little different with what we're doing now. But I would never go back to it. And uh, I think again, talking a little bit, I guess, about the culture of the business, but also how you talked about like how you hire. We're the same way. It's got to be self-starter. They've got to be driven. They got to take responsibility and work well on their own. And um, uh, but what we can offer, I think, is this benefit where you're not sitting in gridlock in traffic every morning and every evening, and the rigid schedule of where you got to go pick your kid up, or you've got to go pop out to do this, or like there's that flexibility. And there's just this level of trust of just give me the time and get your stuff done, right? But there's a flexibility that I think people really appreciate, and I think it ends up in a lot of ways fostering a really good working environment.
Yeah. I mean, talking about working environments, I'm such a, I guess, outgoing person that I would often walk around the office, just stand up every 30 minutes and just start walking around the office, and it would lead to hours a day of conversation. So the less I have of that at home by myself, the more efficient I feel like I am.
I'm probably the same way. I'm sure my team would say I'm bad enough every once in a while on Zoom. But to be, like like I still do miss a little bit of that, but really not much. The flip side is just, it's too much of a benefit. So how do you, I guess, like you mentioned, it's been a bit of a challenging time the last couple of years for creative agencies. I was on a call with a friend of mine that does advisory for creative agencies. a few weeks ago, and he came in, and the first thing out of his mouth is he's like, "It's brutal out there for everybody." And he said, he goes, "We're not talking recession, we're talking depression in that industry." So that was his perspective. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's true, but it sounds like it's been a challenging time. What is causing that, and what do you see sort of over the horizon?
Um, Number of things. I mean, people still don't want to outlay their capital, or at least they didn't. Um, so new budgets mean, different approaches to marketing, smaller teams, less larger external agencies. Um, I'm not going to say or make any assumptions of how AI is impacting it, because I'm sure everybody has their own opinions. But um, smaller companies are able to hopefully figure out how to use AI to create their own little, social media posts or copywriting or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, they still come to agencies like ours because we do great UX UI. We do good creative strategy and design strategy and illustration work that you just can't get production level quality stuff out of AI yet.
Mhm.
And I don't think that'll happen for a while, but it's definitely tough. It's, paycheck to paycheck for now.
Yeah. I've I've been there. Well, we talk with businesses every day. I will say it's certainly not isolated to your sector at all.
Hmm.
It's tough out there for in fact, even during COVID, it was really hard in a lot of sectors, and then there's some that just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
I don't see that much anymore. I don't see those skyrocketing ones. It just feels like you're doing okay or you're really fighting, and that just
Well,
seems to be the feel right now.
I mean, it feels almost like the wave or the tsunami of business time of the pandemic is just now receding, right, and taking everything with it,
Mhm.
including the shoreline.
Yeah.
Um, so what I see is just stabilization over the next year or so as a result of lowering interest rates and businesses
Mhm.
feeling more confident again, consumer spending going up. Once people have money in their pockets again,
Mhm.
nobody's spending money when they're worried to death about their mortgage. Um,
Yeah.
that's just the reality of the world. So always goes. I always go back to that meme of the world burning and a picture of a designer going, "Does anybody want a logo?"
Yeah, that's sounds about right. And I can feel it because I felt it in 2008 in my
Mm.
agency, and fortunately we got on track and we rebounded really quite quickly with some serious pivoting.
And that's Yeah, and that's the thing is most people who can survive this kind of storm or tempest are going to come out the other side super strong and be able to blow up really quick. And I'm already starting to feel that on ourselves, like
Hmm.
in terms of size of opportunity that we're getting. I would say it's double from last year. Just the size of the client, the size of the projects. People are now starting
Yeah.
to think about, I'm going to raise money, or we already raised money. We'd love to talk
Hmm.
to you guys. So a lot of people are coming to us for various reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, and that's a good thing because I've been in business long enough to have felt that a number of times, and when you feel it, it's like you're not there yet, and it's like exciting, but it's also you're not sleeping at night. Like
Well,
it's like
totally. The cash is
it's just
not in the
close.
bank. And until the
Yeah,
cash is in the bank, all of the interesting conversations don't mean anything.
they don't mean anything. Um, but I keep going back to that sort of experience, like the experiences I've had in the past, where I'm like, like it's not like it's Dryrun. It's a challenge for us too, and we've done a pivot recently too, and and I think we've done it right, right, and we can feel it, and like I said, the conversations are really good, and we're like, it's there, but it's time. Because the deals that are a lot bigger take a lot more
Of
time, and
course.
it's a challenge, um, but I can feel it, and it's like I felt this before, you know, and when I think back to it in the past, it feels like in my mind that it was like a light switch that suddenly turned on, but it wasn't. Every time I'm sure it was 6 months or a year of this really slow light switch turning on. But when you think back on it, it feels like this just flipped over. and I think that's where we're getting closer to. I remember like we were only a couple years, not even like a year into the pandemic, and I remember being on podcasts and talking about the state of business at the time, and it was basically we were saying, guys, it isn't going to be like, you know, this shutdown and then it turns on and everything's good. It's that there's all of this debt load and lagging sales and a slow ramp up, and some markets have completely changed. And I'm like, this is going to kill businesses years after you think it will.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's going to be hard for years. And then what happened on top of it is all of a sudden, oh yeah, now let's ramp inflation up and let's make interest rates go through the roof. And so there's these things that we didn't even predict that was coming. And like, man, you guys just made it 10 times worse. So it's a challenge out there. And I'm hopeful that we're, like you said, over that next year, it's going to start turning the corner.
Agreed. I had hoped that what would happen after the pandemic was there'd be a strong influx in tourism and there'd be tons of money there that would spread into the economy. But with inflation going up as a result of oil prices, no one predicted that, you know, an invasion here would cause oil prices to rise, and then the oil prices would cause inflation, and the inflation would cause everyone to have a high interest rates. And so as a result, even the tourism industry didn't rebound, and everybody, as you know, on the level was kind of shit on.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be as dramatically as it showed up. It certainly won't go away in a dramatic fashion. It'll be, I think, a slow easing.
2025 should be pretty good for most people. I like to say that the marketing and creative agencies are the first indicator in business. We were the first ones that they let go of when budgets ran dry, and we are the first ones that they hire when they want to improve sales.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it is a good barometer.
Yeah. So it's a good barometer. Exactly. So my feeling of positivity right now and seeing all of this opportunity come in probably says that in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to have a much stronger economy again.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. Like when we went through it, 2008, 2009, about, I think around 70% of our clientele were government agencies. And if it was a government department, we'd done something for them and we're doing something for them. And mostly a provincial, some civic, a tiny bit federal, not very much federal, is mostly in Alberta. But I'll tell you, when the recession hit, part of what helped us sort of get through it was the fact that the government was a little bit slower to shut down than the corporate sector. The corporate sector was like,
March 16th, we're off. Yeah,
exactly. That is exactly. And the government it's stretched out a little bit. And then we went, yeah, but corporate's coming back faster. So then when the government stopped, because I remember saying this all the time, when they shut down, they'll be shut down for years. And that's literally what happened. And you could see them starting to shut budgets down. The next year would come around. And so we had to do a pivot to basically going to almost all corporate. And but what it did is it just bought us that little bit of time. So there was a little bit of, I don't want to say luck in there. Like, I think we had
foresight. It sounds like foresight.
Yeah. Like that, that's more what it felt like. And we managed to, but the hard part was, okay, now we have to pivot and we have to get known out in this other sector that doesn't really know us. And fortunately we did it but I think you were right. Like, the corporate sector, like, it started ramping up faster probably than the economy did. And I think that's exactly what you're right. 25 will likely be a nicer to ramp up and I think it's partly things get better, but I think partly people just get used to it. Because I think that's actually what we felt a little bit. Is like, it's not that the economy got a lot better, but people are just kind of, used to 2010, 2011. Like, that's just what it cost.
They started pricing it in. Yeah. As they say.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where people have been around, like, suffered with the interest rates where they are for long enough that it's probably just what it is. Let's just go.
I mean, when we moved to Canada in 90, like, I wasn't I was 7 years old. So interest rates were like 18%, something insane like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope they don't go anywhere near
No,
there.
I don't think there's
But
any room for that.
but it was true. Like when we bought our first house, I think interest, like I think our first mortgage was, I don't know, like 7% or something.
Yeah,
And that had not, and from people looking back, like you said, in the 80s, they're like, that's actually not too bad. Right. And we're
yeah.
like, okay, whatever. And then it started to go down, down, down. And I don't know, we lived behind the hog for a while. So, but I'm hopeful, like it's a tough year. We've we got a pulse on a lot of businesses. They have been a lot of failures last year and even into this year, that just ran out of runway.
They may still keep coming, right?
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's been tough for everybody, even ourselves, and we've had to take on some debt in order to make sure that we're all shored up.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the start of this whole thing, our biggest client collapsed and took $250,000 of our profit with them, for various reasons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Ugly. So hopefully it's now, looking back on it is hopefully where we're at now, and it's starting to pick up, and it feels like it to me. And we're seeing it on our side, and I know you're seeing it there, and it's hopefully that's where it heads, and things start to rebound.
it's good to feel optimistic
Yeah, well, it's entrepreneurs. You have to be optimistic. Like it's
or delusional.
yeah, or delusional. It's probably basically a lot of both, to be honest. But but I do want to actually ask you a little bit. We've been talking about Digital Panda a lot, but I want to know a little bit more about, like, who out there that's listening right now should be in contact with you. Like, what do you guys really like? Where's your sweet spot? What do you guys like to do? Who do you work with that should maybe be reaching out?
Yeah, generally we work with companies who are fairly established, for a variety of things. So on the marketing side, we create really sophisticated marketing videos and really high-end marketing websites, for companies who are already in business, who want to take it to the next level, who want to really impress their end users through user experience, what we call magic moments, sophisticated animation, and all of that in web. On the product development side and product design, we work with companies who already have established products and have customers, sometimes startups with who have just done like serious rounds. And we create the actual full-on user experience of products. That's my original background, is in product design and development. So we do full service, like from start to finish, of the entire brand or business.
And how can they find you? What's the best way to track you down and talk with you?
Well, we're on obviously we have a website, thedigitalpanda.com. We're in the process of redesigning that to be a little bit more professional, but also show a little bit more fun and sophistication. We're on Behance, we're on LinkedIn. We have our socials and stuff, and hopefully you can flash it in this thing.
Yeah,
somehow.
I'll have it on the show notes so you guys can read about Ilya and Digital Panda, and we'll have some links down there for you. But I just always love to ask so that people can hear it when they're listening through the old headphones here. So thedigitalpanda.com. Thanks again, Ilya. This was a great conversation. I always love talking with agency owners, and we always get a little bit nostalgic.
I really appreciate the time. I really enjoyed this as well.
Thanks again, everyone, for catching us on the show here. And thanks again, Ilya. And if you're looking for a way to understand your finances and the future of your business, come and visit us at dryrun.com.